Hey guys, welcome to Fright Club. Gav here with another episode of Monday Night Frights. And today I'm joined by the elusive co-founder of the Fright Club NI, Mr. Danny Brown. Danny, how's it going?
Hello, not too bad. Just
What's the
usual.
crack?
Ah, I just sort of living with lockdown, working from home, and all that there, crack.
Oh,
Watching.
you're still working from home then?
Yeah, still working from home. Don't think there's no signs of us heading back to the office anytime soon. But gives me time to watch loads of stuff, binge watch everything. I got Audible the other day,
Oh,
and I've been
cool.
like to like loads of different audiobooks. I'm listening to Skype Boys by Irvine Welsh at the minute.
Great.
So yeah, it's good. It's nice to, because obviously he writes in that thick Glaswegian dialogue.
Yeah,
So having someone read to you in it, it's a lot better than actually
yeah.
sort of reading it if you're not used to the sort of dialect.
You've got
So
a
I
habit of,
would
you've got a habit of breaking out a wee bit of Scottish accent every now and again,
I,
don't you?
I love I love going into a Scottish accent, especially I remember when Anna and I went on our first date. I started, because I was nervous, I started just doing random like voices and including my Scottish one. And she said to
Right.
me after, I wasn't sure if you were actually a bit Scottish when we first met.
Yeah, yeah. No,
But
no,
yeah,
that's mad. But yeah, no, yeah, I'm the same, man. I just obviously I've been back at work now for quite a few weeks now, but just trying my best, trying to get in as many movies as possible and reading a few books if I can. But yeah, just doing the usual, So doing this
no.
obviously now, so I'm happy that we can actually start doing this now that we're
Yeah,
finally
I
here
know
now at
what.
this point.
You've been doing like all the hard work, and I've just been kind of like, yep, go good, bud. So
Nah, nah, it's all good, man. I enjoy it. Sure, we're here now anyway. So we're actually here today to talk about Robert Eggers. And the main reason why we're talking about him today is because he's actually in Northern Ireland filming his new movie, The Northman, or The Northman, whatever way you want to pronounce it. I don't know much about the movie itself, other than the fact that it's about Vikings. Do you know anything
yeah.
about it? Have you
And
really
the
read much about it? Or?
I mean, the Skarsgårds. If Viking comes up, everyone's immediately just like, hey, let's get the Skarsgårds involved.
Let's get the whole family involved. I know Bill, who played Pennywise, and
Mhm.
Alexander Skarsgård's in it, and
Yep.
also Willem Dafoe's in it, I think, as well, and Class
Yep.
Bang and Anya Taylor-Joy, who obviously was in The Witch as well. She's in it. I don't know what characters or what the actual plot is. It's just about Vikings, so that's enough for
I
me,
can,
really, to be honest with you.
I can imagine it's not going to be your typical sort of like like um
The Viking
like
series or anything like that.
Viking series, or what's the one that's on Netflix called? Which again, it's another kind of is like a comedy Viking one. But I can't imagine it's going to be anything like either of those or any
No,
other sort of Vikingy. It's definitely going to be atmospheric as hell.
if
Yeah.
if if his first two feature films are anything to go by, it's definitely not going to be your standard Vikings sort of tale. It's going to be there's definitely going to be a lot of other weird shit going on, which I'm
It's
really
going to
excited
be,
to talk about today.
yeah, really lore heavy and stuff. Like, I mean, there's that episode of Vikings where they all kind of go to like a forest and trip out on mushrooms. And I
Mhm.
imagine like that is what the movie's going to be, is just like a prolonged version of that episode.
Just like
So,
just like one big long trip. Yeah, that's
yeah.
that's probably what it's going to be. I mean, I don't know anything about it, but that's a good shout actually to shout the plot now. But so
Yeah.
I can't wait to start hearing stuff about it. Like I've seen some set pictures. We
Mhm.
actually, if anyone watching this, if you want to check back on the Instagram, check down there. We've got some set pics on there that we were managed to find online. And I know they were supposed to start filming the week of lockdown or the week before lockdown. And obviously, because of the lockdown, they decided to postpone production, but the sets still remained. And I believe that, and I know Anya Taylor Joy is now in the country because she posted on her Instagram
Yeah.
that she
Very good.
had arrived in Northern Ireland, and some of the other actors I think have started coming over. So I'm not sure if they've definitely started filming, but
Yeah.
if they
They're
haven't started
preparing.
filming now, they're definitely starting to film within the next sort of week, which is very
Yeah.
exciting, and I can't wait to hear more stuff about that.
Could you imagine walking, like going down the coast and bumping into William Dafoe and
I
just being
know,
like, "Oh my God, it's
hey,
the Green Goblin!"
I know. Do you want to go out on a boat and see if there's any mermaids out here or any fucking seagulls or anything? But
Catch a
yeah,
couple of lobsters.
I know. No, it'll be cool. It'll be great for the company. Obviously, we had Game of Thrones over here, but to have kind of this isn't a big Hollywood movie as such, but to have somebody who is so exciting in a genre like horror or if you want to call it horror, psychological horror, wherever you want to sort of pinpoint his kind of genre is. It's very exciting for me, and I'm sure it's exciting for you and for genre
Oh
fans
yeah,
in general.
definitely. Like it's good to hear anything sort of coming over this direction, whether it's up here or down south or anything, because it's such a booming industry now.
Mm-hmm.
And it, obviously with lockdown and everything, it was kind of like, oh, are we still going to maintain that level of
Yeah.
interest for people to come over and film here?
Me.
Obviously, it has. So
Yeah.
it's great.
I know. No, I'm very excited to hear more about the Northman in the next couple of weeks. But so we're going to crack on with talking about his two feature films. Firstly, The Witch, that was made in 2015, and The Lighthouse, which was made in 2019, last year, wasn't it? Yeah.
It was like that. Yep.
So Robert Eggers started as a production designer before he got into kind of being an actual filmmaker, stroke director, and he made a couple of short films. Now, I think he started making them around 2007. Was his first short film that actually got produced. I haven't seen any of his short films. Have you seen any? Or
I've seen actually just before the call, I watched Brothers, which was
right?
one he did in 2015. So it must maybe been just before The Witch.
Yeah.
But it was very good, and again, it gives you an idea of his kind of sense of creating an atmosphere. It kind of is just, it's like these little. It's only about 10 minutes long, and it's these little tiny moments that then lead to like a main sort of moment. But within those moments, you immediately get to know the character's situation and
Mm-hmm.
the relationship they have. And it's just the opening of it is just the two brothers like slapping the shit out of each other, like just
Right.
taking turns to slap each other. But there's the younger brother's like really heavy breathing. You can see he's concentrating on trying to hit his brother, and within that moment, you can just immediately you've immediately got the atmosphere of it, and just again, you can see then how it reflects on his feature films in terms of atmosphere and even how the scenes are lit. It's all very grimy and dark looking.
Yeah.
Which again you see in The Witch then, because there's a lot of kind of like a blue hued everything, and then
Yeah.
obviously in Lighthouse is just
Monochrome
the
type.
atmospheric, the lighting and the color in it. Even though it's black and white, there's still like a very very it's very obvious how well lit the scene
Yeah,
is,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
considering there's
Definitely.
no
I mean, the
color.
cinematography in that is unreal, and we'll get into that later when we talk about it. We'll talk about it a little bit more in depth, and that's definitely one of his sort of traits already. I mean, he hasn't been around that long, but just from his first two feature films, and you were saying from one of his short films, like he's not like a director for hire. He's definitely like this real sort of like passionate filmmaker who has a vision on how he wants his films to look. He's definitely a cinephile
Yeah,
who harks back to what he enjoys from the past, and you can see that a lot with The Lighthouse, because I think with The Lighthouse, like whatever way the ratio was, it was made to kind of look like a real old school sort of black and white movie, and obviously the monochrome black and white helped with that. But he's definitely he's an exciting voice in cinema in general, but within the horror genre, he's a very exciting voice because he has these particular traits. And both with The Witch and The Lighthouse, and we'll get into it again shortly, there's very, very similar sort of ways that he sort of, I suppose, makes his films. And even more than that, there's similar themes with the films, which is probably more important. And we're going to be talking about that now. So basically,
yeah.
The Witch was released in 2015. Stars Kate Dickie as the mother, Anya Taylor-Joy as the sort of main girl, uh, and Ralph Ineson as the father. Who I remember Ralph Ineson when he was Finchy in the UK office. Did you watch the UK office with David Brent?
Oh,
And,
no,
no,
I've seen the episodes and stuff, but no, I've not
yeah,
watched it.
it
Uh,
definitely go back and watch it because it's one of my favorite TV shows of all time, and it's kind of changed my life in the sense that it really just opened my eyes to a lot of other different things. But he plays like David Brent's kind of arsehole friend who thinks he's really cocky, and his name's Finchy. But ever since then, he's just went from strength to strength. He obviously was in, I think he was in Harry Potter. He was one of the
yeah,
Carl
was one.
twins. He was one of the Death Eaters in Harry Potter, I'm
Yeah,
pretty sure. And he was in
yeah.
Game of Thrones as well. And he's been in loads of different TV shows and films over the years. But he really excels in The Witch because he's given the opportunity to kind of show his acting talent.
Yeah.
And Kate,
That's
go
it's
ahead.
it's also well performed. You know, all the actors and stuff in it are great. It's very obvious that, you know, they were taught how to use the dialogue
Mm-hmm.
of the time, and it's so, it is, I think, being immersed in the atmosphere that was created for the film then comes out in the performances because they're so like immersed. And that's the thing, I think, across all his films and even his shorts as well. There's like, the characters don't look made up dirty. They
Oh,
look
definitely. Yeah.
dirty. Everything just looks like it has. You know, I was watching an interview with him before, and he's like, I have to make sure that there's the right layers of dust. I've got to make sure everything, and you can tell there's that attention to detail in everything. Just, you know, it comes through so well. Again, I
Yeah.
think that all the actors in it, I've just put it across the board, across all of them, put in such performance because they're so immersed
Yeah.
within his what he wants it to be.
Yeah. No, definitely. Just to elaborate on what you were saying there about the little details. I watched the video, and it might even have been the same video. I posted something down on our Instagram there a couple of weeks ago about. I think it might have just been a short interview with him about, you know, how authentic he has to be when he's making his movies, and he
Always
thinks
talking
that,
about tone and stuff, like
yeah,
making sure all the themes and stuff are right. Yeah, I
exactly.
think
Like, he just says that the authenticity is like one of the most important things about being a filmmaker. Not all filmmakers would agree with that, but for a low budget type filmmaker like him, you know, whenever you don't have all this sort of bright lights and this huge massive crew and this big studio behind you, you have to kind of take care of the details, and the details in his films are amazing. As you say, you know, little bits of dirt here and there that you wouldn't necessarily even see, but it does feel real. It feels authentic. It feels like you're actually being transported back to that time. I mean, The Witch is about, it's set in the 17th century, about
yeah,
an English family that have travelled from England to New England,
England,
and
yeah,
they used to live on a plantation, and they had been moved from the plantation to this sort of private settlement. They're there on their own. They're the only family there. They have their own private farm, but it's on the edge of like this sort of spooky woods, this sort of
so that's
foreboding
how they
forest.
get they basically get told to like leave the plantation because
Yeah,
of his pride. Basically, it's like, you're too prideful. You're
yeah,
asking too many questions. Get the fuck out. And they're
get out.
like,
Yeah,
bye, bye.
yeah,
Yeah, and then obviously it's kind of, I find the whole thing just, it's so, yeah, as we were saying, all the details and stuff, the atmosphere, it's atmospheric horror, like
mm-hmm.
his stuff, and it just, as you say, you go into the spooky wood, and you know, you're just immediately like, it's the idea that something. I think we're so inclined now to expect jump scares that you are waiting for something to
Oh
happen,
yeah, yeah, yeah.
and then the fact that nothing happens that makes it eerier
Makes it
is
even
just,
scarier. Yeah, the
yeah,
unknown is, it's the fear of the unknown that you don't, you know, there's something happening there, and he sets up perfectly because shit basically starts kicking off whenever it's Thomasine, who's played by Anya Taylor-Joy. She's playing hide and seek with the baby, and then the baby like just disappears, like literally just like that, and she doesn't see anything, but we as the viewers see this mysterious figure carrying the baby into the woods, and it's a bit kind of Little Red Riding Hood type esque. You know, it's got a definite fairy tale or a folk tale feel
yeah.
to it, and when he goes into the woods, you don't really see. Well, actually, no, you do. You see the witch, but you don't sort of see it full up. You see it in the shadows and stuff, and you just know that it's a kind of like a very mysterious character who is clearly the titled character of the witch. And
The
then
Witch.
the Vitch.
That's, I remember seeing the poster for that first time, being like, the Vivitch.
I know. I see. I've never heard anybody call it the Vitch. I mean, I see
The
people when
Vivitch.
they write it with two V's, and I'm just like, just write it with a W. It's just obviously that was just artwork that was done on the poster.
Because it
But
reminds
yeah,
you of like or something. They're like, whoa, whoa,
I
whoa, whoa.
know. But yeah, so basically, yeah, from that point on in the film, everything goes downhill. What happens? Basically, what? So
It's everything just kind of come out about them, because it seems to be, I think with this film, it is kind of their fears and the superstitions and the religion that all kind of plays a part, but then it's affirmed by the actions of the characters or the
yeah,
spoopy going on. It kind of affirms their beliefs and their fears and stuff. Whereas with the Lighthouse, it's a bit more kind of like, did that happen, or is
yeah,
that in his head? Or I think with the Witch more, it's more based on your fears are real and they will come to get you, sort of thing.
Yeah, I
But
mean,
then there's also the kind of symbolism of it with is it just to do with the daughter's maturity and desire to break away from the constraints of her religious imposing
yeah,
family and society,
yeah, that was a theory that I wanted to touch on. I wanted to make the point just that you made there, actually, that in the Lighthouse it's more sort of even though there's a lot of the same themes, in the Lighthouse it's more kind of psychological, where, as you said, is
Yeah.
it really happening? What's happening? What's not happening? Whereas in The Witch, the way that it's presented to us is that, yes, this witch is real. Yes, all this bad stuff is actually happening. But even at the end, you could still look at that film, and if you're analysing it, you could say, did it really happen?
Yeah.
Was it actually Thomasine? Was she the witch from the start? Because is there something about her that's because she's becoming of age? I don't know what age she's maybe supposed to be, 15, 16 in it. I'm not sure, but
I think as
because
well, sure, there's the whole idea that she's the like the son that then eventually dies. Uh, isn't there like a whole kind of awkward bit with him where he's kind of
yeah,
he's suppressing his kind of desire towards his like maturing sister
yeah,
and stuff, and the
he's
family are a bit like, ooh,
yeah, he's it's very subtle, but at the start of the movie, there's a couple of scenes where he's sort of glancing at her chest, and you don't see anything. Like, it's just, obviously back then all the women were covered up mostly, but when she's like, there's a part where she's kind of like picking crops, or she's at the fishing or doing something, and he's kind of glancing over and he's looking, and you see a little bit of her chest here, and he's like obviously like, ooh, bit of skin, and he sort of knows it's bad, but at the same time he's at that age where he's getting those desires, and he feels that sort of incestual desire towards his sister. And then she's obviously at the age now where she's becoming a woman too, because they mention later on in the film that whenever things get really bad, there's the mother and father kind of talk about potentially selling her to another family to try to get money to provide for the other kids. But yeah,
yes,
so there's that whole theory about what's real, what's not real. Potentially, I think what we're seeing is real. I don't think there's any other sort of real
no,
theory to it other than, whereas with the Lighthouse, I think that is all kind of more psychological. But
yeah,
the other thing I wanted to talk about the witch is basically after the baby disappears and the family starts to break and be torn apart, each kind of member of the family has their own like sort of demons. So the mother is obviously uh, her maternal instinct starts kicking in even more so once the baby disappears. She starts being crippled with grief
yeah,
and intense guilt as well, because she's realized that she can't protect her family because this kid has disappeared, and she shouldn't have let that happen. So
yeah,
she's got this intense grief and guilt, and the father, who is also obviously grieving, shows it in other ways. So he's more of the provider, as most men are, but especially back in those days, they have to provide for the family, and they have to kind of remain strong. And he realizes that he can't really do that anymore because the crops are gone, the harvest is gone, even they can't really use the farming animals like the goats and stuff aren't producing milk, so they can't use the milk, so they have to go into the woods to hunt. And he goes in with his kid, and he realizes that he's not a very good hunter, so he's got that, he's battling with his own demons. And then the other thing that I wanted to talk about is one, obviously the greatest character in the whole movie, Black Phillip, who we haven't
well,
mentioned, but Black Phillip is the goat, literally and metaphorically. But he's obviously this huge goat with class horns. He's cool and he's cool as fuck. But the two kids, the two twins who are really really annoying, they have this weird relationship with him. So in the beginning, they're chasing him, and they're like singing like a sort of like almost like a nursery rhyme, but it's very ritualistic. And it's quite subtle, but obviously you find out kind of later on in the film that there's a little bit more meaning to that. And whenever they have sort of, they actually speak to Black Phillip during the movie, they whisper to him and stuff like that. And it's that whole thing where, okay, it's just a goat, but then kind of later on you kind of find out actually there's something else going on here, and it's
there is,
maybe not just a goat. But even, is that real or is it not real? That's the thing about this movie. It asks
yeah,
questions, and it gives you this opportunity to analyze it to death, really. And it's just the way he writes and directs it. It presents things to you, but it also kind of makes you go, hang on, am I actually witnessing what's actually happening, or is it just kind of something under the radar that he wants people to kind of latch onto.
Yeah.
But
Well,
go ahead.
I think it sort of, as it plays out, doesn't it end up becoming that, it turns out the baby that disappears, Samuel, is the result of an affair, and the father actually had like stolen from the mother, and it's all these ideas of like the hidden sin and stuff. So then it could be interpreted anyway that the sins of the parents has caused this bad sinful atmosphere in which the children are now being drawn in and consumed, because and they talk about the the baby Samuel is born with sin and the children are born with sin, so are they inherently drawn into Black Phillip and the devil and sin and all that sort of stuff? As you say, it can be analyzed to death, but I think that through that conversation of born with sin, it implies then that what's happening with the children and with the elder daughter is genuinely happening because of their superstitions, beliefs, and then the result of their sin.
Yeah, that's they're sort of, they are devout Christians, so they pray on a regular basis. So it's not just willy-nilly prayer; it's actual prayer that they believe in. That they believe that prayer is changing their lives on a daily basis. So yeah, that is a question. Because is their faith and belief so strong? Is that actually having an impact on their lives in negative ways, in negative connotations? So it's asking the question about religion, and it's good to have faith, but if you have faith, do you see other things in negative ways? And I think it's a very interesting discussion to be made about the whole Black Phillip, and the kids talking to him, and then him sort of communicating with Thomasine at the end. That amazing line of dialogue. What is that line of dialogue? I had written it down there. Oh, I wish thou like to live deliciously. That's what a fucking line that is. That's a great line.
Yeah, what a way to kind of tempt somebody in, especially when they're at their lowest point, because by the time that comes about, it's just like everything's gone. She's nothing to live for, and then someone comes along and is like, "Hey, you want to live deliciously? Of course, of course you're going to be like, yep, I'll take it."
At that point, that she's been basically, the mother's guilt and grief has turned into resentment towards her, because Thomasine was the one that was looking after the baby originally whenever the baby disappeared. So the mother's always had a little bit of resentment towards Thomasine, and it gets worse and worse as the film progresses, especially whenever Caleb, the brother, he goes missing as well. He goes off into the woods, and he actually sees the witch, but whenever he sees her, she's like a younger version of what we get a glimpse of at the start of the movie. And she's a beautiful young woman, and he's obviously tempted because he has these sexual desires, and he's tempted, and his temptation forces him and the witch to kiss, and then he disappears for a while, and he ends up coming back. But it's that whole sort of kind of temptation as well, playing with the kind of Garden of Eden. They mention the apple as well. He originally said that he had went off because he thought he had seen an apple tree, and then the apple actually comes up through his throat whenever he's brought back, and he's having his like spasms, and then he passes away. And then that's really whenever the mother starts believing in the black magic and the witchcraft and saying this is what's actually happened. And then
that's it, all turns to blame. Then from there, everyone's pointing fingers at the other, and the kids are blaming each other, and that's when I think it's the straw that breaks the camel's back then for the parents, and they are like, let's lock them away. Let's put them away here. And it's
and then obviously what happens then is the father gets gored by Black Phillip, and the mother tries to attack Thomasine, who ends up killing her, and the family is basically gone at this point. And the only saving grace for Thomasine is that she has this connection now with Black Phillip, and obviously they have that conversation, and then she ends up going into the woods, and the end of it's brilliant. Like, I just thought it was such a cool ending, because it kind of throws it up in the air. It doesn't really fully explain everything that needs to be explained, but she goes off into the woods, and she sees this kind of party of women dancing naked, and then she realizes, she has that kind of last expression of joy, and she's kind of floating into the air, and then it just cuts to black, and That's
Well, that's it. The idea of like elation. She's finally free of everything that suppressed her womanhood. You know, and I think that's sort of the idea at the end. Then is that they're literally elated to the point of flight,
yeah.
because they can just dance around and be free and show off their womanhood.
Mhm.
You know, they
Yeah.
don't have to suppress it because of society, because of religion, because of their family anymore.
Yeah, no, I definitely think that's a very anti sort of religious statement at the end there, and just sums up the movie really.
Yeah.
But
But again, it could be interpreted the other way, in that to get to get that freedom, she has to then sign the devil's soul book.
mhm.
And again, that's buying into another form of religion. It's another belief system, another faith. So it could be interpreted the other way too, because she's just buying into another sect
Yeah, I
sort
mean,
of thing.
as we said, like there's so many different ways you can analyze this film, and you can take what you want out of it, and people will take what they want out of it. And kind of similar to the Lighthouse, it does share a lot of the same themes. Not really religion, but more so on the whole sort of like uh, isolation and self doubt, and then what that brings on madness. A slow madness that builds up, and he does it better in the Lighthouse clearly, but there is still a little bit of that in the Witch. And I think with the Lighthouse, he takes parts of what he did in the Witch, and he takes it out of there, and then he sort of expands on it, and he kind of leaves the sort of biblical religious aspects, but he expands on the madness and the isolation and what people can
I
conjure up
think
in their own mind.
there's a new sense of fear in that it's no longer about the fear of God, but more a fear of natural gods. Like
Yeah.
a big thing I took from this was I kind of got a lot of what I believe to be like Neptune and stuff. You know, obviously with the visages of the mermaids, and then the visions of the mermaid, and then the squid tentacle, everything like that. There, I was like, this is all tied to, and then the power of the sea. I
Yeah,
was like, this is all tied to
big
Neptune.
mermaid, Tommy.
Big mermaid flaps.
Yeah,
I swear.
you left that part out there, Danny.
What? We'll just. but
No, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. It definitely has it definitely has that aspect about it. But yeah, it's a strange movie. I mean, I really enjoyed The Lighthouse, but
yeah,
it is a kind of movie that it would almost drive us mad watching it. Like it's just that kind of like, what the
yeah.
fuck is going on? This is crazy, but it's really enjoyable.
It's
Again,
really enjoyable. It's not one I think you could sit and like you'd watch it and you wouldn't like a month later be like, oh, I'm going to watch The Lighthouse again. It's a bit like Clockwork Orange. You kind of leave it a while before you go back
yeah,
to visit it again.
yeah, you definitely
Like
need time to sort of consume what you've seen, and
that
then go back and watch it again.
kind of like
Oh, I think we're having some video issues there. Your video stream is pausing there, Danny.
yeah,
We're back. We're
I
good.
was going to
Good.
say, we okay? Yeah.
We're good now. Yeah.
Like,
Excuse me.
yeah, you need to take a little time to appreciate what you've just watched.
Yeah, no, definitely. Out of the two movies, what one do you prefer? The Witch or the
I
Light?
prefer The Lighthouse. I do prefer The Lighthouse. I think the way The Lighthouse is shot is fantastic. I love the two actors in it. You know, their banter, the way they get on is fantastic, and some of the dialogue. Like, I mean, because I only watched The Lighthouse recently. With my brother, me and him were like, right, we're gonna. He'd been like raving about it. He saw it in the cinema and was raving about it the whole time. He's like, right, I've got the day one release Blu-ray. Come around, we'll get some pizza, a couple of beers, and we'll watch it. So I was like, sweet, let's do it. And yeah, I just was absolutely blown away by it. And me and him now just have this like repertoire of dialogue between us. Like we'll just start quoting the lines at each other at random, because there's some like real, I would say, sort of iconic scenes, or ones that you can kind of, you know, I think with The Witch, they're like the live deliciously part is kind of the main one that stands out for me more so. But with this one, there's at least 5 different scenes I can think of straight at the top of my head that I just quote at random to like my brother and stuff. So I think The Lighthouse for me would be the preferred one. What about yourself? What's your
Yeah,
your
I mean, I agree with the Lighthouse being it's definitely more sort of quotable, and it's definitely the more kind of mad movie out of the two. But I personally prefer The Witch. I just think it's a bit more like with the Lighthouse, it is open to interpretation, but the Witch is kind of open to interpretation to the point where it kind of shows you different things that, and I just prefer the Witch. I just think I think it's a better achievement in filmmaking. But the Lighthouse, like, is very good. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed the Lighthouse, and Defoe and Pattinson probably have more to do in the Lighthouse than the cast do of the Witch, and that's not taking anything away from the cast in the Witch, but because it's mostly just Defoe and Pattinson in the Lighthouse, like, it is just their banter back and forth. So they kind of have to hold the whole movie together. And yes, there's iconic images that you talked about, the mermaid and images of the sea and the seagull, that whole kind of
the one that,
yeah,
the one that's like based on a painting where Pattinson's having the nightmare and Defoe's like standing over him naked, and then he opens up his mouth and eyes and the light comes streaming out at him. And then you get that nice kind of like wide shot of him like leering over the top of him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, yeah, they're just like real. The cinematography in it is, oh man,
yes. No, definitely. I think both movies will, in 20, 30 years, they'll be talked about as being highly influential, and
they'll be on media courses like that. They'll be studied to death.
100%. And that's what's so exciting about Robert Eggers, and that's why I can't wait to see what he does with The Northman. And I personally, I think he's the most exciting filmmaker in the industry right now. Not just the horror genre, because he's not going to be contained to the horror genre. He's going to do whatever he wants. And
I feel like, because even The Witch and Lighthouse, yes, more so The Witch kind of classified as horror. The Lighthouse is more like, yes, psychological horror.
Yeah.
They're not horror, if you know what I mean. There's no, I don't feel that they slot into that same kind of category of it's almost like a new thing in itself. Yes, it draws on, but then also kind of subverts what we know of horror.
Well, it's that thing, like, he's a passionate filmmaker. He's an auteur. He's going to make whatever film he wants, and whatever genre you want to put it in, that's what will get put in. It's not something that he insists upon. It's just something like he just makes whatever he wants and makes it to the best of his ability. And then, everybody else will then decide, oh, this is a horror movie, or this is a, an elevated horror, whatever you want to call it, or a psychological horror, whatever you want to call it. But to him, he's just a filmmaker doing the best job that he can do to make the films that he wants, because he's clearly passionate about what he does. And
that's a storyteller. He's just a real genuine storyteller, I think, is probably the best way to describe it. He's like, I've got this story, and this is how it's going to look, and this is how it's going to play out, and that's it. I don't think there's really anything more to it. There's no sort of formula, I think, to it.
No, there's definitely not. But I mean, he's a very talented writer and filmmaker. I think he works with I want to say his brother maybe helped co-write The Lighthouse. I could be wrong there. But I'm pretty sure his brother co-wrote the script. I don't even know if they work on a script, an actual, or whether it's more just like, this is kind of the treatment, and they go in there and they just sort of film and see what happens. And I just think he's a very exciting voice, and I can't wait for The Northman. Hopefully within the next couple of weeks, we'll start to hear more about it. We'll get more production set pics. We'll get more about the plot. Personally, I don't really want to know the plot. I just want to go into this movie and just be like, I know this is a Robert Eggers movie. I know I'm going to enjoy it. I don't really want to know the ins and outs of everything that's happening. And I just want to sit for 2 hours and just have my mind blown. And I can't wait for it.
Yep. No, I'm the same. As I said, my predictions for it are a prolonged version of the Vikings episode where they take shrooms. But if that's all I know about it for now, or the only speculation I have on it for now, I'm happy with that. I'm happy enough to see how it all plays out. I'm imagining, in my head, I'm imagining a lot of like references to maybe like Loki and stuff. I think Loki will maybe play a big part in this because he's a god of mischief and he's going to be fucking around with everybody. I think that's going to be the sort of vibe.
Yeah, that could be a vibe. Maybe he'll go completely in the other way. We don't know, but we'll wait and see. And hopefully, as I said, in the next few weeks, we'll start hearing stuff about it. But I've really enjoyed chatting about Robert Eggers today. As I said, he's one of my favorite filmmakers in recent years, and I can't wait for what this next film is going to produce. So I think we'll wrap up there, Danny, because we're cracking on here. So thanks for joining us today. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a few more of these now.
Definitely, yeah. Up for that.
We'll bang our heads together and see what we could do now in the next few weeks and throw out a few more of these videos.
Sweet. Let's
Happy
do
day.
it.
So thanks for watching this today, guys. By all means, follow us on Twitter at the Fright Club NI and check out the website also at www.frightclubni.com. Cheers.
Bye, guys.